Am I the a-hole for telling my daughters that I made a mistake by choosing to stay in their lives? My ex-wife and I got divorced 14 years ago. It was due to infidelity on her part. Our daughters were 9 and 7 at the time. The divorce was messy. She moved in with her affair partner and ended up with primary custody, and I got every other weekend. It was a disaster from the very start, as the kids did not respond well to the changes. I tried to have a good co-parenting thing going, but little did I know that my daughters were being turned against me. They would be angry and sullen each time they would visit, and refuse to talk about what was wrong. Tantrums, screaming, cursing became the norm, and that's when they were not totally withdrawn. They were being fed complete lies about me. How I didn't love them, how I was going to leave them for another family, etc. It didn't improve with time, and in their teens they costed me 2 very serious relationships with just the most venomous behavior. They didn't even want to visit me anymore, but I insisted that they do. I don't know if that was a mistake or not, because they pretty much cut me off when they turned 18, and the only time they'd visit was to ask for money. I thought things would improve as they got older and saw through all the lies, but sadly it hasn't. I think it never will, and I'm just done at this point. At the start of this year, they'd come to my house to ask for more money. When I refused, they yelled at me again and said they wished I wasn't their father. Something broke inside me, and I told them I wished I had just walked away from them. That if I hadn't stayed in their lives, maybe I would have had an actual shot at a happy life. And maybe they would have too. They looked shocked, and then screamed and cried and left. Haven't seen them since. No visits, no phone calls, nothing. It fills me with incredible guilt, but I almost feel relieved that they're not around anymore. It was a terrible thing to say, but I can't help but feel like there was truth in it. So, am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Tragic, but not the a-hole. I wish you can find something that gives you happiness, though. No visits, no phone calls, nothing. It fills me with incredible guilt, but I almost feel relieved that they're not around anymore. I'd say not carrying that weight around is cause for happiness. Not the a-hole. Not really happiness. Relief, maybe. Happiness will take some work, I suspect. Not the a-hole. No doubt very common. I used to think fathers that walk away were deadbeats. Now I know most don't stand a chance if the mother decides to demonize him. My mom tried to do that with us. Just subtle things to make us dislike our dad. Thing is, I'm autistic, and I don't do subtle, so it never worked on me. Haha, joke's on you, Mom. I'm also on the spectrum and don't do subtle. The older I get, the more I understand subtleties, but I still make people spell things out, so I don't get totally off base. Not the a-hole. There's only so much crap and mistreatment a person can take, even if it is from their children. Be glad and enjoy your newfound freedom. Get back into dating and stop feeling guilty. You stuck around when others would have walked along back. You did nothing wrong. Your crazy ex filled them with poison, but now it seems your girls are ending up like her. I doubt they will see the light anytime soon. You did the best you can. Be proud. Not the a-hole. Sorry you've gone through this. Maybe it would help you move on by writing out your story / your perspective. Cold hard truths throughout, responsibilities for any of your own actions, etc. After it's done, then you can decide if you want to give them a copy, or try once to get together and ask them to sit while you read it to them, or even just feel better about giving up and walking away. Could even ensure they get a copy when you pass. Again, so sorry. Or just write and tell them that no matter what, you will always love them. You're sorry that they turned away from you after the divorce, and there was nothing you could do to stop the lies. And that if they truly ever want a fresh start, to let you know. I believe that if you go ahead and make that gesture, it will allow you to not close the door, but to walk on past it instead and start taking care of yourself. You need some healing, man. Not the a-hole, of course. Next story. Am I the a-hole for embarrassing my aunt? I'm child-free, relationship-free, and intimacy-free. This is important for the story. I have no problems with people who have these things, and will fully support people struggling with fertility issues as much as my body autonomy will allow. The only thing I won't do is to be a surrogate. Me, 29 female, and my parents were at a family party, and my nosy Aunt Caroline asked, "So when are you going to get married and have kids?" It's no secret that I want neither, because I want to be happy on my terms. When I reminded her that I wanted neither, she went off that I wasn't a real woman if I didn't do these things. But I just rolled my eyes having heard it all before. Then came this gem. What about all the other women who can't have kids? Like your Aunt Jessie. You're so selfish. Aunt Jessie and her husband have tried to get pregnant for years, and after a few failed rounds of IVF, she just decided to have a hysterectomy and not deal with it anymore. Her husband has been supportive of her throughout the whole thing, and 20 years later is still going strong. I just laughed, pulled out my phone and called Jessie, who lives a few states away, and asked her about what she thought of child-free women. That's their business. Why are you asking? Caroline said to think about you when I say I don't want kids, and that I'm selfish and should pity people like you. This earned a gasp from the rest of the party, and Caroline going ghost white. Jessie was having none of it. Jesus freaking Christ, Caroline. Let the woman be happy. She's the only person to help me after my surgery while you said you had better things to do. Shut the hell up and let me speak for myself. I thanked Jessie and hung up. Caroline was so humiliated she was crying, and she just left the party. The younger people thought it was much overdue that Caroline got put in her place, but the older ones thought I was being petty. So, am I the a-hole for embarrassing my aunt? Now for the top comments. Well. If it isn't the consequences of her own actions making her cry. Not the a-hole, and quite frankly, well done you for shooting that crap down. I do have a son whom I love very much, but my sister hates kids. It's life, and people should learn to mind their own dang business. Have 4 niblets. 12 female, 7 male, 7 male, and 5 male. The girl is my best friend's kid. The boys are my brothers. And I would gladly die so none of them would ever be sad. Sounds like you were the perfect aunt. Kudos for not letting your family bull for your choices. Not a hole. And how on earth would it help Jess if you did have kids? For Pete's sake. I'm so glad I'm past menopause and no longer get these questions myself. I always wondered why people say that. Like me having kids can make her feel worse about herself. I wouldn't put it past this woman to say something like, well, if you're not using your uterus, you should at least loan it out to someone who will. That is the one thing I refuse to do, be a surrogate mother. I can understand wanting kids of your own, but it's my body that will be going through major changes. Not a hole. It has previously been the case that family just let people be horrible because that is how they are. I think it's bullcrap. Not a hole. Assuming you knew your Aunt Jessie stance and weren't going to hurt her by involving her, all you did was call someone out on hurtful misinformation. It sounds like this is not a new or unusual occurrence based on Jessie's reaction. Your Aunt Caroline needs to learn to think before she speaks, and to just stay silent on a host of topics including someone's personal choices. I knew. She's the first one I told when I was 16, and she didn't write me off. That's your choice, sweetheart. If that's how you want to live, I'm behind you 100%. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for kicking my dad out of my apartment after we threw out my food? I, female 26, moved from my parents after I turned 18. My relationship with them, especially my mom, was terrible at the time, but over the years we managed to fix it, more or less. I visit them 2 to 3 times per year, and once in a while one of them comes to my place. Recently it was my dad, male 51, who was visiting me. In my late teens and early 20s, I was suffering from an eating disorder. Actually, one of the reasons why I moved was because my parents didn't understand it was a real problem. After meeting that right psychologist, I'm mostly okay. I'm trying to eat healthy and actually have lots of fun with preparing meals for myself. My kitchen is always full of vegetables, fruits, sources of healthy fat like fishes or poultry meat, etc. Nonetheless, I'm still getting nervous when I have to eat unhealthy meals for too long. I'm working on it. For my parents, real food must be deeply fried with a ton of salt, or at least be a fast food. When my dad came to me, the plan was for him to stay a week. He had to make his own breakfast, I work morning shift, but I was going to make dinners and suppers for both of us. Right after seeing my kitchen, and then after first meal I cooked for him, I prepared pasta with chicken and zucchini. He started complaining. He said it's no wonder I look so malnourished if I'm eating this way. I have been maintaining the correct weight for the last 4 years, but for him, correct weight is when somebody's at least slightly chubby. Then he said he wants real food while he's staying at my apartment. I told him where the nearest grocery shop is, and that he can buy whatever he wants. I'm eating healthy, but I don't really care what he does eat. I made a supper. He didn't complain anymore, so I decided the problem is solved. The next day I came back from work, and found that he threw out all my food he decided unsuitable and instead bought pre-cooked food, tons of red meat and sausages, full bag of sweets and chips, and, for some reason, few kilos of potatoes. I started to cry. I don't earn a lot, and big part of my earnings is spent of food, but he told me it's for my own good, since evidently I'm still not on my right mind. He was referring to my previous eating disorder, and should stop being so fuzzy and eat like a normal person. I packed all food he bought in bags, carried them in his luggage to the corridor, and told him to get out of my house. The train to my hometown leaves every hour or two, so I was sure he won't spend the night at the station. He called me an entitled witch, but eventually left. My dad told the whole family what happened, and most of them say I'm overreacting and I'm heartless because I kicked my own father out. My mom told me neither she nor dad will contact me again until I apologize. Taking care of my ED took me a few years, and even now I'm not fully out of the woods. I don't want to lose my balance again because of my dad's tantrums, but I also don't want my parents out of my life. Should I apologize to him? Am I the a-hole? Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. He was mistreating you, so you protected yourself. Look at your dad's behavior when you want to know why you have an eating disorder. My mom told me neither she nor dad will contact me again until I apologize. Do not do that. He needs to apologize, not you. But you're better off without these horrible a-holes anyway. Opie thinks this is a problem. This is not a problem. This is the opposite of a problem. Their problem just solved itself. Keep it that way. Opie shouldn't talk to either of them until they paid back for the food with interest. Not a-hole. Not in the slightest. If your parents really wanted to help you, they would try to educate themselves about ED, and they had plenty of opportunities in the last 8 years. Also, how dare you throw out food that you bought in your home, with your own money? The fact that he's trying to excuse his behavior by commenting on Opie's past eating disorder is beyond repair. I would genuinely never talk to him again if that was my dad. Not the a-hole. Definitely not the a-hole. He comes to your house and tells you that your healthy diet is bad, then throws out a bunch of food you'd obviously spent money on. He could have easily bought that food for himself without throwing all of your food out. He just decided to be a major a-hole. You had every right to kick him out. Absolutely not the a-hole. This is what threw it completely over the line. Throwing out your food to try to force you to eat the way he wants you to, when he could have just gotten whatever garbage you wanted and left your stuff alone. I give Opie a standing ovation for standing up for herself and kicking him out immediately. Never apologize for protecting yourself that way. He could have set you back years. I personally would not put any additional effort into maintaining a relationship with them. It sounds as if they bring nothing but bad feelings. Last story is titled, Am I the a-hole for telling my stepfather that he isn't my dad after he bought me a $3,200 gift? I'm 20 female and my dad passed away 6 years ago, and my mother remarried less than a year later. It was a horrible experience, and at the time I didn't know how to manage my feelings. I never liked the man she married, and kept my distance over the years. However, he began buying my siblings and I lavish gifts from the start. My siblings loved the new lifestyle, while I moved out as soon as I could. Fast forward to the present. I'm financially independent and live by myself. My siblings live at their house and I don't see them often. A couple of days ago, my mother and her husband had a pre-anniversary dinner, and once again he had a bunch of gifts for all of us. He bought me a gift worth $3,200, the most expensive one out of all of them. He said that he hoped that we can work towards mending our relationship. My mother kept asking me if I like it, and even told me to say thank you. There was a lot of pressure, and quite frankly it was irritating. So I basically told him that it's a waste of money, that it's irresponsible and stupid to spend that much on a gift for someone who doesn't even care about you. And I told him that he's not my dad, and should stop acting like these gestures will make a difference. Absolute chaos ensued. My mother screamed at me and told me to get out. My siblings were pissed too, and called me a spoiled brat amongst other things. They said that I'm always being cuddled by our stepfather, and that I don't even deserve anything nice. Over the last few days, I've been called immature, petty, obnoxious, ungrateful, disrespectful, cruel, attention-seeking, etc. My mother even said that my attitude is completely unattractive to men, and that I'll be forever single if I continue being so heartless. So, am I the a-hole? Yikes. You're the a-hole. Sounds like you took all of your frustrations from your dad's death and your mom moving on too quick, in your opinion, out on this poor guy. You're not obligated to like him, and you definitely shouldn't be pressured to treat him like a new father. But couldn't you at least treat him like a human being? I'm sorry, but a person who comes into the life of a grieving child and tries to buy his way into a relationship isn't exactly innocent. I would say not today, Hall. He made a choice to give the gift, and everyone around was pressuring her to thank him. He didn't intend to give a heartfelt gift, but rather put her on the spot. I think I didn't know how to manage my feelings is a good place to start. It sounds like you haven't gotten over the death of your father, or how you feel like everyone else in your life has replaced him with your stepfather. Have you been to therapy for any of this? I'm sorry that you are going through this, and it is still so painful. Gentle, everyone sucks here. You are 20, and it's time for you to take care of yourself and your emotions, and not let all the hurt of this continue to hurt the people around you. They're allowed to be happy and love your stepfather. You are allowed to have your feelings, but making a point to demean him and be disrespectful at every turn isn't going to be helpful. And it seems no one has reached out to help you. They have been really crappy since the latest incident. Again, I'm sorry for your loss. Take care. Thanks a lot. I've never been to therapy, but we'll start next month. You're the a-hole kinda. I imagine losing a parent at 14 is devastating, and the feeling that he is trying to replace your father from everyone is awful. He likely thinks that gifts are a way to show that he cares and wants a relationship. You have shown that you don't respond to this, so he should stop and find another way of trying to connect. You don't have to be all in, but being cordial shows respect to your mom and family who does love him. He never has to be your dad, but he is a part of your family's life, so not being a jerk is important. If you haven't gone through counseling of some sort to work through some of these issues, I think it may be very beneficial. There is clearly a lot of pain, but being mean to people is only going to leave you alone in the end. Am I the a-hole for taking my friend to court after she kicked me out of the bridal party for cutting my hair? For my friend's 3-day wedding, I had to buy 3 different dresses, including alterations and specific shoes, which totaled over $700. She also wanted specific hairstyles for each day. Unfortunately, starting in March, my hair started to deteriorate. Due to health reasons, my hair was falling out in chunks, and in May, I made a difficult decision to cut my hair. I told the bride about my decision 2 weeks before the wedding, and she didn't say anything bad. The following week, she came over to my house, and when she was about to leave, she brought up that she was so concerned about my haircut. And I told her it would look good even though I wouldn't be uniform with the other bridesmaids. Then the following day, I received this message. After our recent conversations, I'd like to remind you of my boundaries. I've been very accommodating and graceful, but I can't allow you to disrespect me. As you know, my wedding has been something I've dreamt of for many years. As bit that I have invested a lot of money into the video and photos of this day, and as we reflect on this day in the future, we want to see our vision reflected in the memories. Since I asked each of you to be bridesmaid in 2019, I've been very clear and very communicative in my request. The timing of your decision to cut your hair and not inform me in advance is very upsetting to me. I would have felt respected if you had communicated with me more than a week prior to the wedding, so we could have worked together to find a collaborative solution. Your inconsistencies have concerned me, and while I sympathize with your health concerns, I'm not willing to compromise my vision to accommodate you or anyone else. If you have informed me in advance, we could have found a better solution. Since this is something you can no longer fully commit to, I need you to please step down from participating in my wedding. This was 3 days before the wedding. I immediately sent her and her husband an invoice asking them to reimburse for the dresses and shoes. Keep in mind that one of the dresses is still in her possession even though I paid for it. Neither of them replied, and so I decided to take it to the court. I was told I was inconsistent and selfish after I spent the past 2 weeks helping her plan a wedding shower. I worked with another bridesmaid to surprise her with a bridal shower after our bachelor trip had to be cancelled. I spent hours helping her out with the wedding details. When she asked me to help her tone up before the wedding, I sent her a personalized workout program and even went with her to the gym to show her the ropes. When I agreed to be her bridesmaid, I was more than willing to oblige with what she asked, even if at times it was a lot of time and money. So, am I the a-hole for taking her to court because she kicked me out for cutting my hair? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Should have had a lawsuit served to her at the altar. Do you take your bridezilla to be your lawfully served wife? Not the a-hole. I mean, not the a-hole. She's a massive A and should pay you the money. But she won't because she's a massive entitled A. But I'm guessing you don't have any sort of written contract? Depending on verbal contract laws where you are, I suppose you can argue that expenses were incurred on the agreement that you were in the bridal party. On the other hand, if she's been as much of a control freak bridezilla as you say, she might be able to show evidence that a reasonable person would know that in this wedding, changing physical appearance would be seen as a breach of expectations by making themselves unsuitable for the bridal party. It's going to be a hell of a thing to argue successfully in court. There's no contract or verbal contract. I had obliged to every single thing she wanted. Dresses, shoes, makeup, jewelry. The last day of the wedding was a Monday, so I even took off work. The only thing was my hair. I physically could no longer do any of the hairstyles, and wigs are just too expensive. And because of how much I had already spent, I couldn't afford one. I would seek some form of legal advice. You'd have had what a lot of places would have considered a verbal contract, that you agreed to be a bridesmaid and participate in the wedding with the understanding you'd have to buy X things in order to do it. But there won't be anything about reimbursement, I imagine. As for the evidence, at a guess you might have more than you think if you have emails/messages being all, to be a bridesmaid you need to buy X and X and X, etc. On the other hand, if she detailed hairstyles you now can't achieve, offered a wig solution or specified not to cut/dye hair, it might be seen as a breach. Like I said, get legal advice. Luckily, I had friends who are in the legal system, and they've helped me out and helped me prepare my case. I don't have a court date yet, and probably won't for a while because of COVID, but I'm prepared for it all, and have all my evidence gathered from emails, text, invoices, witnesses, etc. Not an a-hole, not one bit. I can't allow you to disrespect me, and then she turns around and utterly disrespects you and your friendship. What a horrible, heartless friend she is. You've done your absolute best to be involved with her wedding/bridal shower, and helping her so much in addition to paying hundreds for your dresses, etc. And she kicks you out because of your hair? For which you have an extremely valid reason for cutting. And even if you didn't, it'd still be absolutely ridiculous for her to do and say all this. I'm baffled. I can only imagine how you're feeling. All the best to you. Next story. Am I the a-hole for enforcing a country club's dress code and not changing my venue? I'm getting married in February at a country club my fiancé's parents belong to. The club has a strict dress code in their dining area, even for events. Jacket, ties, and slacks/khakis for men. Dresses or slacks/khakis and a blouse for women. Kids are dresses, slacks and nice shirts. No logos. I put this on to save the date in case it would be an issue. Keep in mind, it's not a rule I created. Now, my younger sister is in college, and her standard outfit is basketball shorts and a t-shirt. I told her she didn't have to wear a dress, but slacks or khakis and a nice top. She told me no. I said it was strictly enforced, but she said she didn't care. I told her that it would mean a great deal to me and I could help her find something comfy. She still refused. So I asked why this was so important, and she said she thinks dress codes are stupid and she's not conforming. In the end, after constant back and forth, she said she's not coming. I said that really upset me as we were very close and I wanted her there. My mom says I should just change the venue, but I told her we can't with how close the wedding is. My in-laws paid for it and they'd lose their deposit. She told me that I should ask for an exemption to be made, but the club said no. My mom says I'm forgetting my roots to impress my fancy in-laws. Am I the a-hole? Change the entire venue. For one person? Your sister isn't a nonconformist. She wants others to conform to her. Not the a-hole. You were very open with her and gave her plenty of options. Also, khakis and a nice shirt isn't that strict of a dress code. My parents and other siblings also hate the dress code, but were willing to go along. Now that sister was refusing, they feel less alone. Do they hate the dress code, or are they envious that you're marrying a wealthier family? I don't know if that's that. They're all just very laid back. No cares for the future or what comes. They don't care if people hate them. When they met my future in-laws, we went to this nice place with no dress code, but it's implied you dress up. The family showed up in jeans, shorts. My dad wore a t-shirt advertising a beer company. Not the a-hole. Forget any written code. Basketball shorts and a t-shirt are not appropriate to wear for a wedding guest. They aren't appropriate for most jobs at all. Not sure what her future is going to be if she must wear basketball shorts all the time. Even in entry-level fast food, retail, or construction jobs all require pants. Not the a-hole. Your sister needs to learn that certain events require certain rules to be followed. She's an adult, isn't she? She's 22. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for refusing to take off my engagement ring for my sister? I, female 26, recently lost my fiancé, male 28, in a car accident. My sister's, female 23, boyfriend, male 25, who happened to be my fiancé's brother, was also lost in that accident. It was very sudden and overwhelming for both me and my sister, and we are still both struggling after weeks of grieving. I'm still having trouble processing that I will never be able to marry him, and I have been wearing the engagement ring every day since he passed. It has been a very difficult few weeks for my sister and I, and we have been trying to cope together since. But yesterday, we had a fight about my ring. She asked me if I was ever going to take the ring off, and told me that I was being selfish for wearing that ring. She insisted that she was never able to get engaged or get married to her boyfriend, and that my fiancé was dead, so I wouldn't be getting married to him anytime soon, so I shouldn't wear it. I don't know if it was the grief talking, but either way, I got angry real fast and flipped out on her. Yes, wearing the ring won't bring him back, but it was the last thing he gave me before he died. I'm not sorry for wanting to treasure that ring, even if there will never be a wedding ring to accompany it. I argued this, but it only made her angrier, and our argument escalated. She left my apartment after that in a rage. We are both suffering from our grief, and I have no right to claim I have it worse. But I believe I was justified in yelling at her for what she said, and that she shouldn't have been so hurtful to me like that. My family, however, doesn't agree, and I have received several texts telling me that I was out of line for what I said. Am I the a-hole Reddit? Keep your ring. Wear it with pride and be proud of the love it will forever hold. You and your sister have suffered a terrible, terrible loss. And while she's grieving, I don't think she means to be so cruel. At least I hope not. Maybe she just was never given something sentimental from her boyfriend, so she's just upset she has nothing to hold or wear daily like you do. May I suggest a locket for both of you? Maybe matching sets each with pictures of your late loves inside? Again, I am so sorry for your loss. Grieve how you wish. You will grieve differently. But you do not have to change how you give for someone else's comfort. Not the a-hole. 100% this. Hope she, like you, is in the middle of the grieving process. I don't think she meant to be cruel. And I don't believe you did either. You are reacting to her. You both need time, understanding, and maybe therapy. Cherish your ring and the love it holds. No a-holes here. Not the a-hole. You grieve how you need to. You got something she didn't, but you both missed out on so much. Let her know you are sorry she feels that way, but you need to grieve how you need to grieve. And for both, I would seek out professional grief counseling. Their relationship reminds me of my aunts and uncles' relationships. Two sisters married to brothers. They both were beautiful couples that stayed together for decades until death came. To think that beauty was cut so short and suddenly so tragic. I hope they find peace and new love in their lives. I am so sorry for your losses. Grief affects everyone differently, and although it was out of line for her to ask you to stop wearing the ring, it sounds like it is the grief talking, assuming that this is not normal behavior for her. It was within your right to push back, and understandable that you would want to wear something so dear to you and your fiancé's memory. No a-holes here. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for spending a large amount of money in a trip with my dad instead of paying the debt on my boyfriend's house? I, 29 female, recently got in a fight with my boyfriend, 30 male, and his family because I refused to spend my savings in house payment that could result in him getting kicked out of the house. So context. I've dealt with mental health problems all my life, but when I turned 20, I was at my worst. Due to that, I couldn't maintain a stable job while studying in college. My parents have always been supportive of me. They let me live with them, and my dad paid for my psychologist, medicine, all my college education, and maintained me until I was 24, while also taking care of my mom and my 3 younger siblings. He's a super hard-working man, and I think he enjoys and loves to give me and my siblings the best he can. Top-tier parenting, and I love him to death. Fast forward to this year. I have a stable job that pays really well, and I've been saving money for the past 5 years because I wanted to do something for my dad as a thank you for all the sacrifices he has done for me. His dream has always been to go to Disney World. We are not from the USA, and stay in one of those fancy hotels, but he was never able to do it. And now that he is retired, he thought he would never be able to. So I have been saving money in secret to make it happen, and the only one that knew about my savings was my mom, and she loved the idea. I've been with my boyfriend for 1.5 years now. He has a good job, but he is not the best at taking care of his finances. He bought his house before we meet, and he is still paying for it. But due to his poor management of money, he starts accumulating debt due to house payments. But a few weeks ago, he told me that there is a chance of him losing his house if he doesn't pay the debt. Last week, I finally reached my goal and had enough money to take my dad to his dream trip. Just the 2 of us. I told my boyfriend that I was really excited, but he was livid. It asked me how could I be so selfish and go on a stupid vacation trip when he is about to get kicked out of his house. He also told me that if we were in for the long run, I should help him to get out of his debt because that could eventually be my house too. We don't live together. I live in a small apartment. He also told me that his trust was betrayed because I've been hiding the savings from him, and that a good partner does not do that. I told him that it was not my responsibility to pay for his debt, but he kept yelling at me, so I left. He told his mom and sister about it, and now both of them have been harassing me, going to my apartment and to my work telling me how horrible I am for not helping him and trying to convince me to pay his debt. I get that my boyfriend is going through a hard time, but this is something I've been working really hard to achieve. And since my dad is starting to have difficulties walking, with his eyesight and his health in general is getting worse, I don't want to wait any longer to take him on this trip. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. But you are breaking up with him, right? You can't continue to be with someone that's so controlling and abusive. He sends his family to your house to harass you into giving him your hard-earned money when he can't even manage his own finances. Could you just imagine what he would be like if you lived with him? If the example you have of a good and decent man is your father, why would you choose to be with the opposite of that? Don't accept less than what you have been raised to expect. If you will, for example, one guy ended his girlfriend and her kids because she wouldn't give him half her $600 stimulus check. So not today, Hall, and get out of there. I feel like this is something that he and the family will always hold over your head if they can stay that level-headed. Give your dad his gift and say goodbye to deadbeat boy toy. Horrifying. Opie is a good person and deserves better. And it was smart not to tell her terrible with money boyfriend about her savings. It's not his money and none of his business. Not today, Hall. The minute I read that you don't live together and he is only your boyfriend, he has no say in your finances. His house, his problem. He made his own mess. I hope your trip to Disney World is super fun for your father and you. Also, his mom and sister are over the line. Like restraining order worth. If they are so concerned, they can bail him out themselves. Actually, just dump the guy because this is just one big red flag about controlling your money. The idea that is asking her to put money to his house is bad enough. But to demand Opie's hard-earned money with no offer to give her an equity stake in said house? Absolutely freaking unbelievable. Where do people find this kind of entitlement? Your boyfriend is showing his true colors. He expects you to forgo your plans for his lack of planning. His debts and lack of budgeting is on him, not you. Dump him. Take the trip with your dad and enjoy. Just as importantly, so is his family. Opie can expect to be harassed anytime he wants something she's unwilling to give. Am I the a-hole for telling my friend that he got exactly what he wanted and he needs to stop being selfish? I have an old college friend, Nick, 32 male, and he has a fiancée, Sophie, 24 female. They've been together 3 years, and Nick has repeatedly suggested an open relationship, to which Sophie has refused. Until a few months ago when he said he'd only propose if she agreed to try an open relationship. She agreed. I said to him at the time that he was an A for it, but he said he was just acting in his best interests. Now, Nick wanted an open relationship so he could see Anna, 29 female, a girl we knew from college who he always had a thing for. But she was married from when she was 18 to 26, so we never had a chance until recently. He hasn't had a chance to see her yet because she had been living with her sick mom, and they can't afford to rent a hotel room. Now, the issue is that Nick showed up at my house last weekend with a suitcase, absolutely livid, and asked to crash on my couch. He said Sophie had gone out to dinner and slept with a male model, and that she was cheating because he hadn't had a chance to see Anna yet, and it wasn't fair for her to see someone so much hotter than Anna. Not that Anna isn't attractive. I basically laughed at him and told him this is exactly what was going to happen, and that it was being selfish expecting Sophie not to see anyone or to see people less attractive than her, as she's very attractive, and I don't know why she's with Nick, to be honest. He went off on me for not being supportive and stormed out. It is trying to turn our friend group against me for not supporting him. I've taken a few days to think about it, but I still can't decide. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Well, if it isn't the consequences of his own actions. Not an a-hole. He asked for it. He got it. Looks like someone fooled around and found out. This is literally the way this goes 90% of the time. I've even experienced a friend in this situation. The a-hole partner wants to cheat with permission and overinflates their chances of being able to in their head. They wear the partner down until they agree, and surprise, surprise, it's the unwilling partner that goes out and gets them some. Not an a-hole. It sounds like a super crappy friend. Not an a-hole. Dude didn't want an open relationship. He just wanted permission to cheat. I hope Sophie has realized that the grass is greener on the other side. Not an a-hole. He doesn't want an open relationship. He wants to date whoever he wants without any repercussions while his girlfriend has to be 100% loyal to him. He said he was just acting in his best interests. Translation? I only care about myself, so everything I do is justified if it benefits me. Rolls eyes at Nick. Not an a-hole. He needs no sympathy. He had a woman in mind when he asked and requested an open relationship, so he could keep Sophie as backup if this thing with Anna didn't work out. He probably thought Sophie wasn't hot enough to get someone, or thought Sophie would be so in love with him she wouldn't take advantage of what is frankly his demand. Oh man, I hope that he ends up without Sophie or Anna. I think you should lay it out to your friends group the scam he was perpetrating on the women in his life, and how whiny he was when the scam blew up in his face. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for asking him how old he is? I'm writing this at work right now because it just happened. I was pushing a cart full of stock down the aisle when this guy stopped me. His exact words were, "Hey, I noticed you because you're really pretty. Would you maybe want to grab dinner or something sometime?" Now for some context, I am 21 as of this year, and this dude that stopped me to ask me out looked like he could be absolutely no younger than 37 or 38. I'm sorry if this offends you, but in my eyes, this is a little bit creepy. I was honestly shocked because I thought this guy was just gonna ask me for directions or help or something. And in my shock, all I could think to do was look at this guy and ask him, "How old are you?" disbelievingly right to his face. His only response to me was, "Well, you don't have to be a witch about it." And then he walked away. So now I'm just here at my podium wondering whether or not I was actually a witch about it. I wasn't trying to be rude, but I was just genuinely kind of shocked. I accept whatever judgment you see fit past Reddit. I just want a little clarity. Oh, hell no. You are not an a-hole. Good for you to ask that question and put him on the spot. Well done. Absolutely not an a-hole. OP, first of all, you weren't being an a-hole. And second, if there's ever a time to be an a-hole, it's when someone's being creepy like this. Was it gracious? No. But hey, guess what? You don't have to be gracious to men 15 plus years older than you who are hitting on you at work. Dude wants to shoot a shot at some random much younger woman in her workplace. He can develop a thick enough skin to deal with all the possible responses, including this one. Guys, don't steamroll in and ask a retail worker to go out with you while they're on a job. They're at work. They're stuck there. They're a captive audience who will get in trouble if they piss you off. A really crappy dynamic to be hitting on people, especially when they're much younger than you. Not today, ho. OMG this. There was another post on here a week or so ago with the same issue. It is so weird and just annoying to ask someone out while they're at work. She is being paid to be nice and assist customers with a friendly face, not to get accosted by any guy or girl who finds her attractive. Let her do her job. Jeez. Not today, ho. And OP, you don't ever owe anyone the time of day just because they feel like you do. One time a guy asked me to dinner as I was cleaning his puppy's piss off the floor. Not today, ho. If he really thought you were significantly older than you were, he would have just told you how old he was. That he didn't pretty much proves to me that he knew he shouldn't have been anywhere near you. It's absolutely creepy. People in their mid to late 30s have no business going anywhere near people your age like that. And I say that as someone in their 30s. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not giving a kid, who I don't know, a ride to the hospital after he broke his leg? This happened yesterday. Bidai 28 male was at my local mall doing shopping, and when I finished up, I went out to my car. I parked in an above-ground parking building. When I got to my car, I noted there was a bunch of kids. I'd say 14 to 16. Rough guess since I didn't bother asking. They were skateboarding. Just doing what kids do, really. Then suddenly, I heard a blood-curdling scream, and I look over and I see a kid on the ground holding his leg. So I walk over to see if everything was okay. To say the least, everything was not okay. The kid broke his leg in a bad way. Not sure how, as I wasn't really paying them any attention. But was for sure broken. Everyone was freaking out, and I said I'll call the ambulance, which just made the kid cry harder, saying something along the lines like, "My parents are going to kill me." His friends were saying I should just give him a ride to the hospital as it was only 3 blocks away. I thought for a moment, but opted to still call for an ambulance. I called the ambulance. They showed up like 5 minutes later. The whole time everyone was trying to convince me to just drive him, and I stayed firm of, nope, not gonna happen. The ambulance is on the way. After the kid was put into the ambulance, and I gave my statement to the police show up to calls with ambulances to make sure they have all the needed info. The kids were all still complaining that I could have just given him a ride to the hospital instead of making his parents go into debt. Man, I think they watched too much American TV because we're in Canada. No one goes into debt for an ambulance ride here. Last time I had to get an ambulance to the hospital, it costed me like $50. Thank you, Canadian healthcare. Anyways, later when I came home, I was telling my girlfriend about what went down, and she called me an a-hole too, because you should have just done the right thing. The kid was hurt and you have a car. And I said back, and ambulances are a thing. And I'm a total stranger to this kid and like, what would have happened if the kid somehow got more hurt while in my car? Not trying to catch a case. Wanted some outside perspective. Am I the a-hole for not giving the kid a ride to the hospital? Not the a-hole. Taking charge of an unknown, vulnerable minor whom you don't know, without their parents' consent? Nope, nope, nope. You did the right thing. Yes, if anyone should be concerned about going into debt here, it's OP. Moving someone with a severe break can cause further damage if you don't have medical training. Driving away with a minor stranger in your car is obviously also a legal minefield. If ambulances didn't exist, and no adults the kid knew were reachable, I would have driven him. But ambulances do exist, so... I'm a nurse, and I would not touch a kid with such an injury. I would have done exactly what you did. It could be the kid was more worried about getting in trouble with his parents because maybe he was supposed to be home doing chores or whatever. Not the a-hole. Definitely not the a-hole. Liability if you took him. You made a smart move. That's what I was thinking. Like, the kid could have been hurt even more, and no way do I want to deal with all that. Legally in the US, and likely similar in Canada, it would work like this. You would likely be protected by Good Samaritan laws by acting as a rescuer. But if you put that kid in your car and then get in an accident by, let's say, in the intensity of the moment, and checking on the kid in your rearview mirror you run a red? Boom! Now you've potentially incurred liability. It just isn't worth the risk. You assessed the situation and called the services that were designed to handle this. And that too is a universal healthcare jurisdiction. There was nothing a-holish about your response. I'd be kinda annoyed at your girlfriend. Not an a-hole. Visibly broken leg? Ain't no way I'm moving anyone in that state. You likely would have caused more damage. Even just thinking about what the leg looked like sends shivers down my spine. Like, no blood or anything, but it was for sure broken. Just bent like the other way. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for not paying for a hotel room? My friends and I want to spend a week at a resort near the beach. My friend and her boyfriend are bringing his buddy and I'm going alone. The plan was my friend and I share a hotel room, and her boyfriend and work buddy share another. We drove here 7 hours, and the buddy was flirting with me, and I realized my friend and boyfriend was trying to get us together. I was not into it. He smokes and smelled fish. We got to the hotel and my friend and boyfriend came to me and asked if we could swap rooms so they could stay together. I was not happy since it means I would have to stay with a buddy whom I didn't know at all. He was okay with it, but I wasn't, and asked the front desk if they had an extra room. They did, and it was expensive, but I didn't want to stay with a man I didn't know anything about. The week was okay, but Buddy was ignoring me the whole time, probably because of the hotel room stuff. We got back, and then he sent me a text saying I had to pay half his hotel room because he was under the impression he only had to pay half. I told him no, he got the whole hotel room, and so he should have to pay for the whole hotel room. My friend called me to ask me to pay because Buddy doesn't have a job and can't afford it. I felt betrayed since it was her and her boyfriend who changed plans and tried to put me in a room with a guy who I didn't know. We argued and she hung up pissed. Now for the comments. Not today home. He was under the impression he only had to pay half. So were you. Opie's friend and her boyfriend should be paying for an extra room. What appalling behavior on their part. Who does this? Like seriously, friends set up friends on blind dates all the time, but hatching an idiotic plan to try and force her to share a room with her, in their mind, date, for an entire week? They caused this mess. You're right, they should pay for it. And Opie needs new friends. Not today home. This is insane. Your friend is legit awful and the guy's gross and creepy. It's not okay to try to force someone to sleep in the same room as a stranger because you think they should have action. Gross, gross, gross. Consent anyone? Super proud of you for getting your own room. And don't enable this guy by giving him any money whatsoever. Not stay home. The whole situation was gross. They changed the terms, not you. Stand your ground. Sounds like your friend and her boyfriend need to cover his half of the room. Last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my husband we can only help support his artist sister if she gets a real job? My husband, 39 male, and I, 37 female, have been married for 8 years and have 2 kids. He and his sister-in-law, 31 female, have always been close despite the age difference. There's also a brother in between who isn't relevant to this post. Sister-in-law is an artist who has been working full-time on her art since graduating from school several years ago. I respect art and believe it can absolutely be someone's full-time job. But the fact is that she's never made any money off of her art aside from selling the occasional piece to a family friend. I don't want to pass judgment on her art because I'm no expert. STEM person here. But she's been trying to make it for years and years at this point and hasn't gained any traction. And I don't think she's going to start making money off it anytime soon. Still, she considers her art her career, and my husband is supportive and proud of her. We even own multiple pieces of hers. Her parents were fully supporting her financially until a couple years ago when she moved in with her boyfriend, who took over. She and her boyfriend broke up earlier this year, and she moved into a nice apartment funded by her parents. Unfortunately, my in-laws recently passed away suddenly and unexpectedly. It was devastating. What they left behind will support sister-in-law for a while, but not forever, and not at the standard of living she's accustomed to, which includes having to move out of her current apartment. And now husband told me he wanted to give her money every month so that she can keep working full-time on her art and maintain her standard of living. We both fortunately have high-paying jobs and a lot already saved for our kids, so we could easily afford it. However, I don't like the idea of supporting a non-disabled adult forever who could make her own living but chooses not to. I'm okay with helping her out temporarily while she starts working and figures out how to make her own living, but not forever. I don't care if she starts out at minimum wage. She just has to be doing something that will make money and start her path to independence. I did slip up and call it a real job to my husband, and now she and husband are both telling me I'm an a-hole, because if she has to work full-time, She won't have time anymore for her art. That being an artist is a real job already. He says I don't understand the sibling bond since I'm an only child. His other brother agrees with me and says it would be about time sister-in-law got out into the real world. Am I the a-hole? Edit. Sister-in-law has submitted to work to many galleries, / tried to sell her art online via social media / etc. She's tried to sell to a larger audience than family friends / family members, but hasn't gotten any bites. So her not selling her work widely isn't for lack of trying, unfortunately. I'm not sure if it's because she's not great at promotion, or because the market just doesn't want what she's selling. NTA, NTA, NTA. I am an artist, but I am working to sustain my art career on the side until it can become my full-time job. Current job is slightly related to art though. No capable adult should expect to piggyback on other people's work for the rest of their lives. That is really disgusting. Your husband is slightly a-holish. Just because I get wanting to help out immediate family, especially since you guys are well off, but your sister-in-law is a massive a-hole. She needs to spend a bit of time in a less affluent part of the world and become a fully formed adult in my opinion. Yep, if it doesn't pay the bills, it's a hobby, not a job. There is no reason why sister-in-law can't continue working on her art with hopes of one day making it, while working a paying job to support herself. Many people who are trying to become actors, writers, and artists do because they didn't have wealthy parents and still needed to eat. Not the a-hole OP. Tell your husband by real job, you meant paying job. If we could all stop working to pursue our passions, everybody would and would all starve. Sister-in-law needs to start learning that passions don't pay rent or buy food. Not the a-hole. Tell your husband you'll be quitting your high-paying job to be an artist. So he'll have to provide for the family 100%. And you won't be taking on any additional childcare / household duties because, after all, your art is a full-time job. See if he thinks it's still a real job. Am I the a-hole for pretending to not know my grandparents? Just for background information, when I, 19 female, was 4 years old, my dad died. At his funeral, his parents told me, my mom, 28-year-old at the time, and my sister, 6-year-old at the time, that we are the reasons he died. They also kept his life insurance money that was supposed to go to my sister and I. Since then, my grandparents have refused contact with all three of us. And the only form of contact I have with them is them sending me and my sister a $50 gift card to Walmart twice a year, birthdays and Christmas. The last time I received a gift card from them was on my 10th birthday, and it was for Babies R Us. I haven't heard from them since. They live in Florida and I live in New York, so I have no chance of seeing them either. At least I thought. Flash forward to present day, 3 days ago now, I was in Walmart near my house to get a few things for my mom. When I walked past the pharmacy, I saw my dad's parents. I tried to hide in the aisles because I didn't want confrontation, but they saw me anyway. They started asking me a bunch of questions about my family's financial situations in college and if I'm married yet, stuff like that. I responded by saying, I have no idea who you are. They looked angry and shocked by this, but told me who they were, and after that, I told them I had no desire to talk to them and didn't have anything to say to them anyway. I started walking away and was just going to leave it alone, but then they said, you're so disrespectful. We are your grandparents, and you need to treat us better than that. Your mom did a terrible job with you. After that comment, I turned around and went off on them. I said something along the lines of, you are not my grandparents, because you abandoned my sister and I after telling us we are the reasons for our dad's death, and you stole his money from us. Don't you dare talk about my mother either, because she did an amazing job with us without any help from you too. I'd be happy with never seeing your sorry faces again. I started to walk away again and heard my grandmother start to cry, but I kept walking. Am I the a-hole? They're technically my grandparents, but they did so many things that are unforgivable. Edit. Also, my dad was active in the military when he passed. The VA has been paying my sister and I a certain amount every month since his passing. I did not have access to this money until a year ago when I turned 18. To me, It doesn't seem like a coincidence that they showed up only a little while after I gained access to that money. Now for the top comments. Not a whole. They are essentially strangers to you, of their own volition. You reap what you sow. I couldn't have said it better myself. Not a whole. Indeed, I really admire Opie for knowing exactly what to say in that moment. I think fate put them together so Opie could set the record straight. Not a whole for sure. Not a whole, and for my money, I'd say they were quizzing you about your education and finances and marital status because they are either in or about to be in dire straits money-wise. If they wanted to know all of that, they should have stayed in touch and not treated you so horribly. They live in Florida but go to a Walmart in New York for their prescriptions? Right. I'd bet $1 they were going to try to hit you and your family up for money or lodging or something. That's what I was thinking. The only reason they'd have to come up to New York is for my aunt, Dad's sister. But even then, she lives an hour or so from me, and the Walmart where I saw them was 5 minutes down the road from my house. So why were they there, you know? Not a whole. If anything, you were nicer than they deserved. If they were so interested, where the hell were they for the last 15 years? Not a whole. What do they expect after literally stealing your inheritance completely and not contacting you with at least a phone call for literal years? Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for leaving a family gathering and insisting mother-in-law apologize over M&Ms? My wife, 34 female, and I, 31 female, have 2 wonderful children, 4 male and 4 female twins. They were conceived with my wife's eggs, a known sperm donor, and I carried/birthed them. Both kids ended up being practical clones of my wife, so it's pretty clear to everyone who contributed the genetic material. My in-laws had everyone together at their house earlier this month. We're all vaccinated, and the weather was nice, so we had a barbecue. My kids were outside playing with their cousins, and sister-in-law, mother-in-law, and I were chatting in the kitchen. At one point, my twins run inside from playing and ask if they can have some M&Ms that they see on the counter. I tell them, no, we'll be eating in 15 minutes, you can have them after dinner. They run back out, and mother-in-law excuses herself to go outside. A little bit later, sister-in-law and I get the call that food is ready, so we go outside, and I see my kids each have a little cup full of M&Ms that they are eating. I tell my kids that they knew they were not supposed to be eating those and took away the cups. Mother-in-law comes over and says that she gave them the M&Ms and they can have them. To which I replied, no, they can't. It's dinner time. You were there when I told them no. Mother-in-law says again that they can have some chocolate, it's fine, and tries to take the cups out of my hands. We go back and forth with no, yes, no for a minute, prompting wife to start walking over to us, just in time to hear mother-in-law say, in front of my kids, I'm saying it's okay. They weren't even your kids. They're wife's. Just give them the chocolate. Wife had mother-in-law repeat herself and said something like, absolutely not. We're leaving. I put the M&Ms on the nearest table, grabbed both my kids, who were now softly crying, and started to pack our stuff. The whole event erupted into chaos. Father-in-law screaming about the disrespect of us leaving, grandmother crying, brother-in-law and sister-in-law arguing with father-in-law, mother-in-law crying that her only daughter was abandoning her. It was a mess. After a couple hours at home, the kids seemed okay, but mother-in-law saying I'm not their mom really scared them. Wife spent about 4 hours on rotating phone calls with all of her family, from father-in-law screaming at her, mother-in-law crying over how it took her grandkids away over M&Ms, and made her out to be a bad grandma, brother-in-law trying to get into drama, grandmother depressed saying she would die without seeing her great-grandkids again. Wife's message to all of them was that mother-in-law needed to apologize to me and to our children for what she said. We made it clear that we would have no problem spending time with grandmother and brother-in-law's family, but we would not bring the kids around mother-in-law until she apologized. As you can guess, the apology has not happened, but the phone calls of guilt trips, yelling, and crying have not let up. I feel an apology is not even a big deal, and at this point, mother-in-law is making the choice not to see her grandkids. I want to hold firm, but I know how hard this all is on my wife, even if I really don't think it's my fault. Am I the a-hole for insisting on an apology? Not the a-hole. This was said specifically to inflict pain, to diminish your family. Even after an apology, not sure with that behavior I'd see her again. You birthed those kids. She knew exactly what it meant when she said it. Right? Over M&Ms, for Pete's sake. And it's not even about M&Ms. It's how she clearly doesn't respect/recognize Opie as a parent to her own children and will likely undermine her parental authority in the future. Not today, Hull. The argument wasn't over M&Ms. It was about mother-in-law disrespecting you as a parent. First by undermining you, and then by openly stating that she doesn't even consider you your children's parent, despite the fact that you grew them, birthed them, and are raising them. She implied that in her eyes, the only family that counts is genetics, not the people who are there for you every day, support you, protect you, and love you unconditionally. Her attitude is disgusting, and I'm so sorry she confused and frightened your children like that. She was 100% the a-hole. Just a cool little bit of info. The woman who carries the babies from donated eggs does have an effect on the baby's DNA. It has been found that the RNA of the birth mother interacts with the baby's DNA, turning on or off bits of the DNA. Not the a-hole. But please keep in mind that mother-in-law revealed how she really feels. She genuinely believes her parental rights supersede yours. And if you get some superficial apology, that's still a pretty lonely and scary place for you to be. You should definitely expect more than an apology. You need real contrition. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my parents not to raise their new child like they raised me? Before I was born, my parents had my older brother who sadly passed away of SIDS. Off the bat, they were trying to have another baby boy, and had my two older sisters before they had me. As the only boy, I was basically made a prince, and my sisters were pushed aside. Everything was about what I wanted. There was nothing I did that was ever wrong in their eyes, and anything to make me happy. Safe to say, I was a spoiled, entitled little brat that my sisters resented. That entitlement lasted until adulthood decided to hit me with a brutal reality that the world did not in fact revolve around me. A couple failed relationships later, I had to accept I was the problem and have tried to turn things around. I've been in therapy for a couple years to work out my problems and not be a total prick. My parents, by some miracle, decided to have a baby in their 50s. We're all shocked, but it's their lives, you know? Our little brother is a few months old, and finally we all got together to see him for the first time now that we're vaccinated. Later on in the day, I told my dad that I just hoped they'd do it different this time around. They asked me what I meant, and I pointed out like it was obvious. The way they treated me compared to how they did my sisters. Obviously, my problems are my own fault, and I take responsibility for my past actions. But the way I was raised is where a lot of those issues developed once I reached adulthood, and that negatively impacted my relationships. I'm 25 years old and only barely know mending my relationship with my sisters after years of dysfunction. My sisters chimed into the conversation too, and agreed they kinda messed up. All that was suggested was not to spoil our brother so much. Don't give in to every tantrum and actually discipline him. Our parents got pretty defensive quick, and we dropped the conversation. My dad has told me I had no right to critique their parenting, or make any suggestions that they do things any different when they never did anything wrong. This has really upset them, and they're pretty mad that we ganged up on them. Technically, I started it, so that's why I wanted to ask if maybe I took it too far bringing this up, and if I'm the a-hole. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Tell your dad that as a victim of their parenting, you have every right to critique it. That you are the one who decides if they did anything wrong, not them. Especially since they say they didn't do anything wrong, even if Opie's proof. They very much did a lot wrong. Dad, we did nothing wrong. Opie, hello Dad, I'm nothing. From what you are telling us, not the a-hole. Because you criticized your parents out of concern for your little brother, not for retaliation or something. That your sisters are agreeing should let them see in theory that they are not as perfect as they think. Oh, and about the did nothing wrong part, you can also be wrong by doing nothing. You don't need to do something for that. Letting a child having their way and doing nothing, for example. So they may not have done anything, but the lack of parenting is there. You make a good point about the doing nothing. I agree with you there. Not day-hole. If you're an adult, and your adult sisters also agree that your parents could have done a better job, the only acceptable response would be for them to take your critiques and learn from them. If your sisters agreed almost immediately after you brought it up, it means they've agreed this whole time and each didn't want to be the first to say it. So don't feel bad that you sparked unnecessary dialogue. And this is about the well-being and humanity of a newborn child, so you have every right to not want your baby brother to have the same problems you did, and every right to voice concerns based on your lived experiences. I hope that your parents do better this time around. Edit. I'm also glad that you've made up with your sisters, because coming from an only girl, it can be absolutely infuriating when my parents treat my brothers like kings and me like a maid. Good on you for being better. I sure hope so. Obviously, not every single problem we develop later on in life is our parents' fault, but taking all this time to think back to our childhoods, there really was a lot of dysfunction, and I'd rather not end up with the same issues I've tried to overcome. Last story is titled, Am I the a-hole for exposing my parents' lies and damaging their reputation? I, 21 male, have a strained relationship with my parents. They are involved in pretty much every social event / circle in our city, be it church, school, clubs, etc. For them, what other people think is the most important thing. For that, they will lie about pretty much any bad thing that could potentially tarnish their standing, and have forced my sister, 24 female, and I to behave in certain ways or follow specific rules. Some examples. My sister and I were not allowed to play with certain kids in our school or neighborhood because their parents were in trade rather than academics. My parents forced me to stop talking to a really close friend in middle school because his parents got divorced. When I got caught smoking in high school, my parents made up a distant uncle with substance problems and told everyone he influenced me. My sister came home one day introducing her Spanish boyfriend to my parents. They didn't like that, so they told everyone the boyfriend is an exchange student that we are housing. My mother once made up a bunch of stuff about a neighboring couple. Stuff like her husband is cheating, she does it out contents to pay the bills. Of course, she always claims to have heard it from someone else, who heard it from someone else, etc. I could list plenty more, but there's text limit. Now recently, I was near my hometown visiting a friend, and I ran into the leader of a church group I was part of. I was pretty engaged in that group, so we sat down for a coffee and talked about the good old times. He asked me about my studies and how my fiancé is doing. I was confused and told him I'm not studying and don't have a fiancé. Turns out my parents made up a bunch of lies to cover the fact that I decided to go for an apprenticeship and turned out to be gay. One thing led to another, and together we went over a lot of incidences and stories from the past, with me exposing more and more lies. The results could be seen a few days later. My parents called me very angrily, asked me how could I do this to them. You ruined our lives. We can never talk to the neighbors again. I told them their entire reputation is built on lies and spreading rumors, that it is disgusting they even call themselves Christians at this point, and that I'm done being part of their little scheme. My sister later called me after mom called her in tears. She's torn. On one side, she gets me, as she already gone minimal contact with my parents. On the other hand, it solved nothing but hurt my parents. Sounds like you didn't even know that you were exposing them until it was too late. Someone asks a question about your life, and you answered. It's your fault your parents didn't tell you what to say. Joke. Not today, ho. Don't know if it changes your voting, but I was very much aware that the group leader would spill the beans. This is a small town, and gossip is his lifeblood. I knew he would not keep it to himself and that it would spread. Still doesn't mean your parents should lie to save their reputation. Your parents dug this hole for themselves. Now they're just being outed as racists, homophobes, and they don't like it. If you have to lie to have a good reputation, you don't have one. They deserve it. Not only that, but imagine the lives they, the parents, have already ruined. I'd be grateful to finally be vindicated over their BS. Not they, ho. Consequences of their own actions, really. That's the best way to put it. You reap the seeds you sow.